there's a big difference between training for something and just like going through the motions and exercising.
Hey everyone, I'm Morgan, co-founder of Primal Kitchen and host of the Primal Kitchen podcast. In this episode, we're chatting with world famous endurance athlete and health and wellness entrepreneur, Eric Hinman, a 5-time Ironman participant, Leadville finisher, and top CrossFit competitor. Eric's experiences as an athlete inspired him to become an early stage investor in several consumer wellness brands. Today, Eric's going to be talking about the benefits of sauna and cold exposure and sharing his tips on how to design your life around wellness habits so that you can become the best version of yourself. Before we get started, a brief reminder that any and all opinions and views shared by hosts and guests on this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the view of Primal Kitchen or its affiliates or parent company. Hey, Eric, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you, Morgan?
I'm great. It's so good to connect. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, I like your setting there in Michigan. It looks beautiful on the east.
Yes, we are living that Midwest summer life. I mean, there's just no place better in the world than the Midwest summer, in my opinion. So
can't agree more.
And you are where? Where in the world are you?
I am in Denver. I just finished a mountain bike ride. It's beautiful here today, although we've gotten a lot of rain this spring, and it literally looks like Kauai out my kitchen window. The trees are just in full bloom. The grass is really green, not the typical arid yellow desert terrain that we have here in the summertime.
Yeah, that sounds very Midwest. We've had a similar phenomenon in Southern California. We had like the craziest super bloom ever this spring. Like there's these mustard plants by my house that are like 13 feet high. It's nuts. People have lived there for 40 years, so they've never seen anything like it. So we're with you there. Awesome. So I want to know how you got into this. Have you always been into fitness? Like, how did you get here? What inspired you to do your first Ironman? How'd you get into CrossFit? Like, give me the background.
Yeah. So in high school, I played 3 sports. I played basketball, I ran cross country, and I ran track. And I thought I was going to be Michael Jordan someday. I would play basketball in my parents' backyard for 3 hours every single night, with my tongue sticking out, telling my dad to lower the hoop so I could dunk. And in college, I got into weightlifting, but very vanity based. It was bench press and bicep curls and just preparing for spring break pretty much. And then after college, I got pretty out of shape in my early 20s. I was driving 50,000 miles a year. My first business was selling property and casualty insurance, going door to door. And I put on quite a bit of weight and certainly did not look the way I look now at 42 when I was 22.
Okay, wait, what are we talking here? A lot of weight. Like, how out of shape were you? You got to break it down for me, because this is inspiring. Because I look at you and I'm like, you're so fit, but are you just one of those like blessed people that was just born this way? So I want to hear exactly how out of shape you were.
Yeah, I mean, I was 205 at my peak, and I probably had 20 to 25% body fat. I mean, right now I weigh 180, which is kind of heavy for me, but my body fat is probably 9% right now. In my Ironman years, it was closer to 6.5 or 7%, and I weighed 165. So I've never been one that like easily put on weight, but I was only working out 3 days a week for 20 or 30 minutes, and I was consuming alcohol, and I thought Subway was my healthiest option when I was on the road. So I didn't have a ton of education around, how to fuel myself, and I didn't have the structure I have now of training 2 to 3 hours a day.
Yeah. Did you feel different? Like, besides just looking different?
Oh my God, I felt so different. But you don't know until you start pulling things out and implementing new things in. So for example, if you eat ice cream every single night, like that's the norm. You just, you feel good immediately afterwards, and then you crash afterwards, and you probably feel like shit the next morning when you wake up. But that's the norm if you're doing it every single day. And I thought it was normal during that time period to have a lull in the day, like to be sleepy in the afternoon and to have, energy and mood swings. I just thought that was normal. And it really wasn't until I got into Ironman that I realized, wow, like I was only functioning at like 60% back then. And, through the Ironman years, I went from, 60% to 98% of what I think my peak output, peak energy, peak mental clarity, peak emotional well-being is. So it's crazy how all of those things are interrelated. And it was really those Ironman years where I started to make that link of, gut health and brain health and how you fuel yourself and how much energy you have. And just like being the best version of myself through those self-care practices.
Yeah. So you're driving 50,000 miles a year. You're selling door to door insurance or something along those lines. How do you decide you're going to do an Ironman?
So I hired a personal trainer when I was 24, 25, and I spent about a year and a half just dedicated to him 5 days a week, 30 to 45-minute workouts, doing CrossFit before CrossFit was really a thing. He had me lifting moderately heavy weights, doing complex lifts like back squats, deadlifts, thrusters, and then he had me rowing and running in between sets. So, it's basically lifting heavy weights with my heart rate elevated. And I mean, I shed a ton of weight. I went from 205 down to probably 175 during that year and a half time period. And, all of a sudden you could see my abs again and I had definition in my arms. And I also started running and playing tennis during that time period. So I was doing some aerobic conditioning and I bought a mountain bike, which I had for maybe 2 months, but there weren't many mountain bike trails in upstate New York where I was from, which was Syracuse at the time. And a bunch of my friends had these really fancy bikes that had 4 handlebars on them. And I was really intrigued by what they were. So I asked, like, what do you do with that bike? Like, it's not a road bike. Like, why are you in that weird position on it? Hunched down with your back parallel to to the wind. And they're like, there's a half Ironman coming to Syracuse. And I'm like, what's a half Ironman? A triathlon where you swim 1.2 miles, you bike 56 miles, and then you run a half marathon. And I'm like, you can do that in a day? And they're like, yeah, people do it in under 5 hours. So I was really intrigued by that. So I signed up for a sprint distance triathlon, almost drowned in the swim. I had to side stroke and backstroke my way through, passed a bunch of people on the bike.
Do they do the swim first?
Swim is always first. Yeah, it's swim, bike,
you're
run.
afraid you are going to pass out, right? And then
Correct.
Drown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't want to swim after in a full Ironman after running the marathon and biking 112 miles. That would be tragedy.
So you almost pass out during the swim and then you still have to do this 50-mile bike ride and
Exactly. So, but I started small. I mean, I started with a sprint. I did that, thought that was crazy. And then I did an Olympic distance triathlon, which is half of what a half Ironman is. Thought that was crazy. And then I did a half Ironman. After the half Ironman, I told my girlfriend at the time, I'm never doing that again. That was a horrible idea. And then like 45 minutes later, I'm signing up for Ironman Lake Placid the next year. So the sport just like sucked me in. And it's one of those sports where you want to just keep seeing how far and how fast you can go. And I honestly became obsessed with the process, which is good. Like you want to be obsessed with the process instead of the outcome because, that creates longevity with it. So I hired a coach and that coach taught me a really valuable lesson that there's a big difference between training for something and just like going through the motions and exercising. So he taught me zone 2 heart rate training, how to burn fat for fuel, the maffetone method. And endurance sports are all about having an aerobic engine and being really durable. So we really backed off on the intensity that I was going at because I was used to these high intensity 30 to 45 minute CrossFit sessions. And I thought that was exercise. Like you had to go really hard and be like flat on your back afterwards. And when he slowed me down to a 130 heart rate on my runs, I'm like, dude, I could do this forever. Like, I don't even feel like I exercised. And he's like, I know, I want you to feel like that because I want you to do it again tomorrow and the next day. And 4 years from now, you're going to be way faster because you trusted this process. And sure enough, he was right. When I first started working with him, I was running about an 8:30 per mile pace at a 140 heart rate. And fast forward to 2014, just before Ironman World Championships, I was running 20 plus miles at a 6:25 pace and a 129 heart rate. And it was from doing very, very little intensity work. It was just from zone 2 heart rate training, but I did a lot of volume.
Interesting. Now, okay, we have to rewind a second because you just mentioned like some cool things in the training, like the zone 2 heart rate training. Like give me a synopsis of those 3 or 4 things you just mentioned. What are those?
Yeah, so the maffetone method is taking your age and subtracting it from 180, and that's approximately what your aerobic heart rate is. I mean, the best way to do it is to go and run a 5K all out, see what your average heart rate is, and then take about 80% of that, 75 to 80% of that, and that's going to be around your zone 2 heart rate. And I mean, it's something that you can do where, you can have a conversation with someone, but you're taking a breath in between each sentence. So it's
the idea is that number is where you want to be training.
Correct. Yeah. I was training for me at a 130 to 140 heart rate. My max heart rate during that time period was about 177. So almost all of my training was at that heart rate. 80% of my training was at that zone 2 heart rate. And that allowed me to do a lot of volume. In big build weeks, I was running 60 plus miles. I was biking 300 plus miles, and I was swimming 15,000 plus yards. So it allowed me to do a lot of volume where you can't do that type of volume, if you're going out and just doing lots of threshold sessions. And there was a time and a place for the high intensity work, but it was at a very high intensity and it was for a very short amount of time.
Got it. And are you still doing Ironmans today, or have you retired from your Ironman days?
I haven't fully retired. I still like endurance endeavors. I'm doing Leadville this year, the bike race. So I still
tell people what Leadville is, because I know I lived in Colorado, but a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, Leadville is a 104-mile mountain bike race. They also have the famous 100-mile run, and it starts in Leadville, which is at 10,000 plus feet. The entire race, you're not below 10,000 feet. I believe it climbs to 12,500, and there's about 15,000 feet of elevation change. So just like a long day in the mountains, mountain biking, and it happens 1 week before the run. I mean, there's a Leadman where you do the run, the bike, marathon, a 10K. Like there's always another level in Colorado.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you're doing the Leadville bike.
I'm doing Leadville. I haven't done an Ironman since 2014. I'll never say never, but right now I'm really chasing this CrossFit chapter of my life. I'm getting really close to getting to the CrossFit games in my age group. There's only 10 spots in each age group, so it's really, really competitive to get there. So the last 4 or 5 years, I've been really focused on anaerobic conditioning. So, very, very high intensity workouts and strength training, just trying to get as strong as humanly possible while still having a really good engine.
So this is like the opposite of your Ironman training, kind of.
They lend themselves to each other some, but the training is definitely very different. I typically don't do anything longer than 60 minutes aerobically right now, so that I can hit high intensity workouts and I can hit heavy strength training sessions. So I've backed way off on the long endurance stuff, and I've really upped the volume with strength training and the high intensity intervals.
I love it. So what does training look like for you these days?
5 days a week, I'm in the gym for about 2 hours doing CrossFit type training. So, that would be complex lifts like back squat, deadlift, Olympic lifts like snatch, clean and jerks, gymnastics, accessory work, and anaerobic conditioning. So short, high intensity intervals or fairly short metabolic conditioning workouts. And then 7 days a week, I do something aerobic. Like I just got in from a mountain bike ride a little while ago. My aerobic conditioning is generally mountain biking, just because I'm prepping for Leadville right now. I'll run 1 or 2 days a week. And if I'm doing a high rocks race or, a marathon, half marathon, anything like that, I'll ramp the running up for about 2 months, but I'm not running a ton right now, just because that really affects my ability to maintain weight and also my ability to lift heavy. So mountain biking, 60 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and then maybe running, hiking, rucking twice a week, 45 to 90 minutes in those sessions.
What is rucking?
Rucking is hiking. You could do it walking too, but for me, it's going up a mountain with a Go Ruck pack on that has generally a 40-pound plate in it.
So Colorado. You're just
so Colorado.
How did you, you you're living, you could be one of those Instagram reels about Colorado, like the Subaru, the whole thing, huh?
I know. I should get a commission for all of the people that I've enticed to move to Colorado, like a portion of their tax revenue.
You should. Let me know how that works out. I might want to switch careers. That sounds like a good gig. So what does diet look like for you over the years?
Yeah, so I'm obsessed with Primal Kitchen buff sauce. Diet for me is I build my calories throughout the day. So I eat pretty light early on. I have coffee with maybe some MCT powder, collagen in the morning. I have some supplements, creatine, colostrum, generally some type of vitamin mineral supplement like an Athletic Greens or a Beam Core. Go to the gym, hit my workout. I might bring a bar with me, couple hundred calories, just to have some carbs or a banana, some kind of fruit if my session is really high intensity or heavyweight. And then
what
afterward,
kind of bars are you buying? I'm very curious.
I like Tiro Bar, which is a company out of Miami, just 4 ingredient bar.
I've never heard of this. What's it called?
Yeah, Tiro Bar, Tirobar.
Okay, I'm
I like
Googling.
all natural things. So, 4 or 5 ingredient type products. Not a big fan of like sugar alcohols or, anything that has 30 plus ingredients in it. So I'm looking for things that, are basically like a carb, a date, some kind of nut, and maybe a natural sweetener like honey, maple syrup. So I might bring that with me to the gym. And then afterwards, I'm either doing a smoothie or I'm doing eggs and chicken sausage. Pretty basic in the smoothie, banana, some kind of generally plant-based protein powder, some frozen blueberries. I like slate milk a lot. I'll generally put that in for the base, but I don't mind just regular milk either. Some kind of nut butter, and that's about it in the smoothie. Pretty basic. And then after my afternoon session, if I'm hungry, I'll have another smoothie, same thing. And then at dinner, I'll have a big dinner. I'll do a ribeye, a strip steak. I'll do burgers, chicken thighs, salmon, some kind of carb like potatoes, rice, and then generally some kind of veggie, some zucchini on the grill, a salad. But I'm doing a pretty big serving of meat to get a lot of protein in the evening. And then I'll snack on almond butter for a little snack before I go to bed in the evening. So dinner is my biggest meal. And I mean, I've found for me, there's a direct correlation between food volume and mental clarity. And I like feeling super on throughout the day, almost, in ketosis without testing. So I don't eat a lot, just enough so that I'm not hangry throughout the day and just enough so I have energy to hit my workouts and to have fuel for my mind to perform. But yeah, if I have like a big steak in the middle of the day, I feel lethargic afterwards.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too. I like this progressive eating thing. That works for me too. Well, you mentioned plant-based protein. Do you avoid like whey or collagen and stuff like that? What's the deal with the plant-based protein?
No, I don't completely avoid it. Some ways bother my stomach, so I think a lot depends on how it's sourced. But no, I don't completely avoid it. I drink
Have you ever
Powerlift.
tried Primal Fuel?
I haven't tried Primal Fuel. No, you sent me some. I love collagen too. I've taken collagen for years. I mean, I worked
I'll
with
send
Vital
you them.
for a long time. I have to try yours in a smoothie.
Yeah, I'll send them both to you. I like Primal Fuel's like funny for those listening. Like this is a product like nobody cares about at Primal Kitchen. Like I am not trying to pimp Primal Kitchen sales here. It's like a product I think if I said tomorrow we were going to discontinue it, people would be like, yeah, that's fine. Not the people who eat it, but Mark's had it forever, but it is like the best tasting whey protein powder on the market. I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with our collagen fuel too, but I was just curious if there was like a preference for some reason to plant protein or plant-based protein powder, but interesting. Okay. So did anything change for you when you were doing Ironman versus like CrossFit, or do you think this diet has kind of been like around for you the whole time?
No, my diet was drastically different during those years. Ironman years, it was a very high fat diet, not a lot of meat and a lot of veggies, high fiber diet. So I was doing lots of avocados, nuts and seeds, big salads, I would do white meat, but man, I didn't have red meat for a very, very long time. And it was just, I don't know, I'm an all in type of person. And for me, that worked really well to burn fat for fuel. I was reading a lot of stuff that Ben Greenfeld and Dave Asprey and people like that were putting out during that time period. And it seemed like the high fat diet was the right way to go to be both lean and also to not be burning carbs for fuel, to have like this big fuel tank for all these endurance endeavors I was doing. And then the last 3 years has been very protein heavy, very red meat based, kind of the exact opposite direction of what I was doing then. And I've put on a lot of muscle mass since then. At my peak of triathlon, I weighed 163 and right now I'm probably 185. So I've put on 20 pounds since that time period. And that's my goal is I want to be 185, maybe even 190 to be competitive in CrossFit. Just have to be heavier to move the heavy weight necessary in CrossFit competition.
Yeah. It's interesting. So my psychotherapist that I've been seeing for 20 years since I was like 20, well, not 20, 15 years since I was 25. I brought him on the podcast and, in therapy, like I don't talk much about him, right? I'm paying him. So we talk about me, but I brought him on the podcast because he's like he competes in amateur triathlon all over the world and he's like 80 something. Okay. So he was competing in like the 70 plus triathlon range. And he's been competing for decades. And I asked him about his diet, and he has been eating filet mignon for dinner for like, when he was competing 7 nights a week, filet mignon for dinner for like 20 years. Cause he was like, it's all about the red blood cells, and that's how you have recovery. And I just like thought that was so interesting. It's this tangential side note. Do you feel different on like the more keto diet versus the more, I don't, it's almost like you're more paleo now and you were more keto before?
Agree.
Or yeah.
Agree. I mean, the thing that really affects my mental clarity is carbs. If I eat too many carbs, I feel like that really affects my mental clarity and my creative ability. So I do still, lower carb for how much I train for sure. And yeah, the protein and smoothies, it's really, I feel about the same as I did during that time period. I have more energy now, but that's probably a factor of not working out as much. Like those long endurance sessions, there's certainly a high afterwards, but I would crash later in the evening and be pretty exhausted, come dinner time. Whereas now I feel like my energy levels are high right up until my head hits the pillow. So, it could be a factor of eating more red meat, but probably also a factor of doing less training volume, but at a higher intensity.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now I know this about you. We've only connected, just for folks listening, we've had like 30-minute conversation. We got connected through mutual friends, but you have like a pretty cool wellness regimen going with like people at your house, don't you? You're big into cold plunge and sauna. So I want to talk about that and how that like factors into your training too. But I also just like give the listeners an idea of what it's like over there, you're in your wellness home that you've created.
Yeah. I mean, tonight we'll have about 4 people here to do contrast therapy. So we crank our Sisu sauna at 200 degrees. We can turn it up to 230 if we want to, but I found that's a little uncomfortable for most. We'll sit in there for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then we'll do about 3 to 5 minutes in the ice barrel, and we'll do 2 to 3 rounds of that. And I mean, that
you call it contrast therapy.
Contrast therapy, going from hot to cold to hot to cold to hot to cold.
What sauna did you mention?
Sisu sauna, SISU. It's a barrel sauna with a Hum heater, fits 8 people, and it just cranks. It heats up in 45 minutes. And I mean, you can run that thing at 230 the entire time with a bunch of cold bodies getting in and out of it. So it holds the heat really well, and it gets hot really quick. I think a lot of people listening to this probably know the benefits associated with, reducing all-cause mortality, reducing inflammation, the stress resilience benefits of it, the cardiovascular benefits of it. But for me, it really is about human connection too. Like I've had some of the best conversations of my life in the sauna. So we use that as a community bonding tool where, friends, new people that reach out to me, it's just kind of an open door policy of people coming here every night and doing that with us. And that's how I formed a lot of my deep friendships. That's where a lot of like creative ideas come up. That's where a lot of business opportunities come up is in the sauna. So that's one of the reasons why I like doing it every single night, for the physical, mental benefits, but also bonding with people, meeting new people. So every single night from 5 until 7:30, we have that thing cranking, and there's people passing through. And our backyard is a gym. I mean, we turfed 1,200 square feet. I have a big rig that has a rope attached to it, rings for muscle ups, squat racks, pull-up bars. We have multiple rowers, runners, GHD machine, assault bikes, ski ergs. So, I mean, the house is just kind of a wellness compound. We have an indoor sauna. We have red light therapy. We have PEMF mats. You name it, we have it.
Oh my God, I love it. What red light therapy are you doing at your house?
We have the Juve panels.
Okay, cool. This sauna looks cool. I really want to get, my husband's like going to listen to this and be so jealous because this is like his dream. I think you've inspired me. We need to like create a wellness sanctuary. We have a garage gym that's pretty legit. But I think we need to up our game. Like it's so legit. Adam's like worried about moving because he's like, how will we move the exercise equipment? I'm like, we can get people to help us move the exercise equipment and be okay. But that's super cool. I think the community aspect of it is definitely something that is just like, it's underplayed. That is like such a big piece of it all, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, Finland is consistently one of the happiest countries in the world. And I think there's almost one sauna for every person in Finland. And, I don't know how much they actually knew about the health benefits when their sauna practice started. It all started because of that's where they discuss important family matters and political things. And it's a place where they bond. And there really is something to being in a sauna and being really vulnerable with the other people around you. You're in this captive environment with your endorphins racing. You have a very narrow aperture and your mind is really clear in the sauna. So it just lends itself well to incredible conversations and deep bonds forming. And you have that component too of like doing something uncomfortable together and this camaraderie that's formed over, overcoming that, even though you can get out whenever you want. Most people end up staying, a little past being uncomfortable.
Yeah. And then you add in the ice barrel on top of it. How many ice barrels do you have?
We have 3.
No way. Are they just all right next to each other so everybody jumps in their own ice barrel at the same time?
Yep.
So cool. I love it. That looks awesome. What do you think for folks listening who what would you recommend they do if they wanted to start to create a community like this? What do you think? How do you get into it?
So, I mean, for me, it was finding something I was really passionate about. So it started with tennis. I mean, I was playing tennis every single day and met a lot of people in the tennis community and had lots of tennis partners. And then when I got into triathlon, my whole friend group was triathletes and people into endurance sports. And, a lot of opportunities came from that too, business wise, friendships. And then, as I've grown my following on social media, I have a lot of people that reach out. So, at that point I was like, well, I want to create my own thing instead of having to go places. I just want to have it all here for all of the people that reach out. So we have the place that everyone can come to. But, I think if you are looking to initially meet people, it's going where those people are. So finding a gym that has a sauna and a cold exposure tub and going to, CrossFit is an amazing community of people. If you enjoy CrossFit, that's a great place to meet people instead of going to a gym where you're putting your headphones on and not meeting anyone. So with a lot of this stuff, I think about is how can I multitask without multitasking? Like, where am I going to get the most bang for my buck in doing one thing that's going to serve me, but it's also going to serve so many other of my checklist things that I want to accomplish each day. So, a club, a place that has sauna and cold plunges, a gym where you can meet people. And then once you start meeting those people, it's, just creating it for yourself in your home if you want to be the hub for it.
Yeah, so cool. I want to be the hub for it. I'm going to be like, you should send me all your affiliate links. You're just going to buy everything you have at your house and set it up. I'm excited.
Good.
So your career. So we talked about you, door-to-door salesperson. So what happens after that?
Yeah, so property and casualty insurance, that was 2002 until 2009. I actually still own that business. And my father, who was the one who initially gave me the opportunity, he now runs that business for me. After that, I got involved in software. I started a mobile application development company with some business partners, sold my shares in that in 2014, opened up a gym in 2013, a restaurant chain in 2016, another restaurant in 2019, 2020 that I co-founded. And then along the way, through Ironman, I built a following on social media and, recognized the opportunity in 2015, 2016 of that becoming a brand and a business. And, I've really differentiated myself in that world of being more of a consultant to the brands I work with. So helping them seed product to influential people in the wellness space, helping them build ambassador programs, putting on community events. I literally do a community event now probably every weekend, traveling around to different places, doing sweat crawls and community rucks and community cold plunges. And I love connecting people, and that's really been my jam for a long time. If I meet someone and I just kind of instantly think of like 10 people that they should be connected to where both parties can get value from it. So a lot of my time is spent just naturally connecting people. So when I'm working with a brand, those are all of the things I'm doing: building their ambassador program, connecting them with others that can add a lot of value to what they're trying to do, really amplifying awareness through in-person events and seeding product. And I've run lots of businesses, so I know that if someone is paying me, I have to provide an ROI. So I come into every relationship with, how can I provide a ton of ROI for that brand? And that's a lot of why I work with the brands I work with. They're generally smaller, up and coming brands where I can really move the needle for them with my connections, and I'm exposing my audience on social media to the latest and greatest.
So cool. That's like quite an entrepreneurial career here. I mean, that's a lot of different things.
It is.
What was the biggest failure?
I mean, the gym I lost a lot of money on. Yeah, it's interesting. I think entrepreneur is often deemed as success story or angel investor success story, but I think what people fail to see is that a lot of those investments go to zero, and a lot of those businesses you start don't end up, making any money. It's really a reps and sets game where some of them do very, very well, and I've had some good successes along the way. But the gym I lost a lot of money on, so have had failures. I've had many investments that have gone to zero. So, it's really risk mitigating, but also taking enough risks that you start to recognize how to risk mitigate. You can really only learn that by either surrounding yourself with people that have gotten to where you want to go, or by doing it yourself, failing and not making that mistake again.
Yeah. It's very cool. What business did you have the most fun like running or starting?
I'm having a ton of fun with the business now. Building out these ambassador programs for brands. I feel like over the years with each business, they have become more friendship based. All of the people I'm doing business with now, they're incredible friendships and relationships. Like, they are not transactions whatsoever. And early in my business career, it was the exact opposite. It was very much like, how can I make more money? How can I make commission? How can I make another transaction? And I was like, I thought about customer service, but I didn't think as much about, I call it the fly to Tokyo rule. Like, would I fly to Tokyo with this person? Do I want to interact with them on a regular basis for hours on end because we are just in flow state when we're talking to each other? We're both adding a ton of value into each other's lives. We're connecting each other with people and opportunities. So I think through that now with anyone I work with, like, is this going to be a really good relationship and friendship where the sum is way greater than the parts? So yeah, you really learn as you go how to build a business that is really soul fulfilling as opposed to just satisfying your ego.
Yeah. Interesting. I was just talking to we built Primal Kitchen that way. It's like a lot of employee number one is my best friend from childhood, like two people who have hired me in past companies I hired at Primal Kitchen, like a few of my bridesmaids work for us still. Has very much that feel. And I was just talking with one of our coworkers, one of my friends last week, and we were saying like, you get to a point where, I don't know, I had a lot of different careers in my 20s as well. And then you kind of come to realize like almost who you're working with matters more than what you're doing. Like, it's great. Mm-hmm. I'm super passionate about Primal Kitchen. I love the brand. It's like my baby, I talked about it at my wedding. Like, clearly I'm a big fan, but the team makes like a way bigger difference in my day-to-day life. I love this Tokyo rule. I'm going to take that with me. Like, if you don't want to go on a work trip with someone, do you really want to talk to them every day for, a lot of hours? It's a lot of your life.
It is.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So trends wise, what are you most excited about in health and wellness these days?
I've been doing sauna and cold exposure for a while now. Sauna dating back to 2011, sauna and cold exposure dating back to 2017. I think that is still hockey stick growth, but I think what I'm most interested in is, having like Aura rings, Koros, whoops for what's going on inside. So understanding, how that smoothie I just made is affecting my cortisol levels, my testosterone levels, my blood sugar levels, basically like these continuous glucose monitors, but for all biomarkers. That's what I'm really interested in. I think that is not something that has been tackled yet, that can be tackled and is going to really help us optimize our individual bio-individuality. Like we're all different, and different behaviors, different foods, sleep, all of these things have such a tremendous effect on our lifespan and health span. And if we can see what's happening in real time based on the decisions we're making, like I think that is going to make a massive impact for all of us to live our best lives.
Okay, you mentioned the Aura Ring, the Whoop, and then you said
Koros
Koros?
is the watch I wear.
Oh, okay. Cool. What's it telling you
It's
that
similar
the
to it's similar to a Garmin where,
okay.
it's going to tell you everything that, a Whoop or Aura Ring or Garmin will tell you: steps, HRV, sleep score, but, also is tracking my power on the bike and tracking distance and elevation gain.
Yeah. What are you paying most attention to outside of like the fitness? Like I would imagine you're paying attention to heart rate and your distance, but like what metrics do you think are the most? Are you like doing frequent blood work? Like what are you tracking in your own personal journey?
Yeah, I am doing frequent blood work. I do that through our friends, Blokes, for men, and Joy for women. I'm doing that at least twice a year. I think that's super important. I'm 42. So, I actually recently had a scare. Josh will appreciate this story if he listens to this, the founder of Blokes. I got into this really bad habit of drinking maple syrup at night. And it started very innocent where, I was just having some frozen blueberries, a little almond butter, and some maple syrup on top before going to bed. And then I realized, like, I really like the maple syrup. Why don't I just like have the maple syrup? And I got to the point where I was like drinking maple syrup at night. And
Stop it.
so I did some blood work, and it came back like pre-diabetic because I was spiking my blood sugar levels so much before going to sleep. Yeah. So I stopped doing that, and I would not have known that had I, not had the blood work to see that. So I've stopped buying maple syrup completely just because I kind of became an addict. So that's something I'm doing. But other things I track, the big things now for me are strength. Like I am following a program called HWPO, which is Matt Frazier, 6-time CrossFit Games champion. I'm following his programming, and it's all based on periodization of percentages of your 1 rep max. So sets and reps of all of those complex lifts, the Olympic lifts, gymnastics progressions, and then I'm doing high intensity intervals. And I'm not really monitoring my heart rate with that. It's more perceived effort, but the strength component I am heavily monitoring because that is still my one weakness of getting to the CrossFit Games is I have to get a little bit stronger. So that's been the big data point lately that I've been tracking. I get really good sleep. So, I haven't needed to track sleep in a while. I spent a full year dabbling with different sleep supplements and sleep protocols to dial in my sleep. And I've kind of done the same, dating back to 2010 of each year, just picking something new to tackle, getting that on autopilot, and then moving on to the next wellness protocol.
Okay. What was the sleep solution?
So sleep things that I do, we set our temperature to 63 degrees. We have a chili pad on top of our mattress. I sleep with a sleep mask and earplugs. I have a Dyson fan blowing on me. I avoid highly stimulating environments late at night. So you'll very rarely catch me like entertaining big parties late at night, going to Red Rocks Amphitheater. I don't like doing super late night activities unless I'm really, really excited about it because that heavily affects my sleep. I don't set an alarm. I don't schedule anything before 8:30, just in case my body wants the extra sleep. I'm generally in bed every night by 9 to 9:30, asleep by 10, wake up at 6 a.m. with no alarm. I go outside in the morning, walk on the treadmill for a little bit, get morning light. And then I take Beam Dream as a sleep supplement with a little bit of honey, like a teaspoon of honey. I found that mixture for me just kind of shuts my mind off at night. So I don't wake up with a racing mind. I think that's the biggest Key is like being able to get in a place where your mind is calm before you go to bed. If you're like stressed out, answering emails, like thinking about tomorrow, anxious, like you're going to get a shitty night's sleep. Us type A personalities, we're going to wake up in the middle of the night with our mind racing. And then like you get your phone out, you look at bright light, you write down the 7 things that you're thinking about, and then you can't go back to sleep. And sleep is so much about structure. If you get a few nights of bad sleep where you're waking up 4 times throughout the night, like that all of a sudden becomes the new norm for a while until you can get back into 3 or 4 nights of good sleep. So I'm really, really careful about my sleep routines to make sure that I stay in that consistent sleep routine of getting at least 8 hours and not waking up throughout the night.
Yeah. I mean, I have 3 kids under the age of 5. So
Makes
like
it tough.
it is so brutal right now, but my little one is still nursing. I mean, he's not even 1. So I feel like the end is somewhere in my future, but man, it is brutal. I used to be, I mean, I don't set an alarm either. I haven't set an alarm in like, I don't know, unless I have a flight, and then I don't sleep because I'm afraid I'm going to sleep through the alarm because I never set an alarm. But yeah, it is a nice thing to not have to do that, I will say. Interesting. Okay. So you mentioned you would pick like a different thing. What are some of the other things you've picked to tackle, and what have you learned?
Yeah. So, I mean, purposeful training was one of them, like understanding why I was doing the zone 2 heart rate training, why I was biking at a certain wattage, why I was swimming the sets I was swimming at the intensity. So purposeful training was the first one. And, for me, that is the top of the food pyramid, dialing in the movement, lifting in moderately heavy weights, doing some type of anaerobic conditioning for me, getting my heart rate above 155. And then on the opposite day, doing some kind of aerobic conditioning. I think that is lifestyle fit. If you do 45 minutes of strength training and anaerobic conditioning day 1, and then day 2, 45 minutes of aerobic conditioning, go back and forth, maybe take a day off each week. Like that's general lifestyle fitness. You'll feel good. You'll look good. So getting the movement dialed in, I think, is paramount for people because so many other things will fall into place if you can dial that in. Generally you'll probably sleep better. You'll eat healthier. You'll be interested in some of these recovery routines. You'll form better relationships. Your friend group will change. So all of these other things will create this positive snowball effect. Recovery was certainly one of them, like dialing in that contrast therapy routine. For a while, I was doing yoga. That was one of the things that I started in 2018-19, and I did that every single day for a year until that became autopilot. I unfortunately fell out of that routine, but I felt great when I was doing it. During COVID, couldn't go to yoga studios, so I kind of lost touch with my yoga practice during that time period. Sleep was one of those years. Nutrition was one of those years. And I've had, various years over time where I've put nutrition back on the table of like, okay, I want to try the, kind of carnivore fruit honey diet. Okay. I want to try the, more vegetable, high fat, high nuts and seeds diet and see how that affects me. So those are the pillars. I mean, my 4 pillars of health are, exercise, nutrition, sleep, and recovery.
Yeah, it makes sense. What about supplements? Are you taking a lot of supplements?
So I have access to a million supplements. I take more than probably I would if I was paying for a lot of them. The main ones that I'll take with me, like if I'm traveling that I just can't go without. And again, I think like all of these do serve a purpose. And, if you have a lot of disposable income and you want that extra 1%, I think supplements are kind of the icing on the cake. Like get those 4 other things down first and then focus on supplements for, just that added 1 to 3% performance gains. But some of the ones that I take religiously, some type of caffeine, coffee, or, a powdered coffee if I'm traveling and only have access to hot water. MCT, I like a lot, putting MCT powder into the coffee. Collagen, I've taken for years, at least 10 grams, generally probably closer to 20 plus grams of collagen each day. Creatine, I travel with. I take oftentimes 10 grams, 5 grams pre, 5 grams post, but there's so many studies about the positive neurological benefits of creatine now. So that's when
I
I
feel
travel.
like creatine is having a moment. I feel like creatine's what all the football players drink in high school. And
Yeah.
everyone was like, creatine, it's gross. And now it's like totally having a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be like a multivitamin type thing where like you do it to cover a lot of bases.
But do you think you only should be taking creatine if you're like lifting weights, or do you think everybody could benefit from creatine?
I mean, there's so many studies showing, and there's so many people in like the CTE space that are talking about the neurological benefits of it that I think men, women, regardless of age, regardless of whether you're lifting heavy weights, regardless of whether you're, only running or doing endurance, I think it's beneficial. So I think it is. I mean, again, this is just from talking to experts in the industry around the neurological benefits of it, that it should be a staple supplement. I mean, it's so inexpensive that, for $20 a month, whatever it costs for, your month's supply, I think you would be doing yourself harm by not supplementing with a little bit. So that,
Melatonin's another one I feel like with a lot of neurological, like there's some data coming out on the neurological benefits of melatonin.
I take melatonin, and I have for years. I mean, dating back to 2010 when I was having trouble sleeping because I just had so much energy from all of the businesses I was running and the high volume of training. So I started taking melatonin during that time period. And I've had no adverse effects in the 13 years that I've been taking it. I now take Beam Dream, which has melatonin in it, along with other ingredients. That's another one that I travel with and religious about taking that every night, 30 minutes before I go to bed. So yeah, for me, major positive effects. I think there's other studies that show that, if you're pre-puberty, maybe not the best idea. Also in taking it, you might be stunting your ability to produce melatonin, but it's another one of those things that, it's pretty inexpensive. And if you do need it, it's not like an addiction to $1,000 a month type product. So, the benefits for me of getting deep sleep day in and day out far outweigh, any reliance upon melatonin.
Yeah, makes sense. What else are you traveling with? Anything else?
Colostrum I take on a regular basis. I really like the studies behind colostrum.
Do you have a favorite colostrum brand?
Armra is what I've been taking for the last year and a half, ever since they launched. I like the taste of it. And, I never get sick. There's a lot of other things I'm doing that obviously help with immune system, but I think that's one of those things too that help. I'll take beta alanine and L-citrulline pre-workout some days as a non-stimulant, pre-workout supplements. I'll also sometimes take that before an afternoon session when I don't want caffeine in my system. I generally only have caffeine in the morning, like at 8:30. I rarely have it after that. So generally, if I want to have something else to ramp me up again, it's like a beta alanine or L-citrulline that I would have. That's the apple cider vinegar I'll have just kind of for gut health and digestion. Athletic greens, just to cover all my bases and to have some, prebiotics, probiotics, adaptogens, ashwagandha, which is in some of the supplements I take, to regulate cortisol levels. So I take that. And again, I think the foundation is creatine, definitely take, collagen, definitely take. Caffeine for me, just the energy and mental performance I get from it, and then Beam Dream. Those would be my rotation that I'm not going a day without taking those.
I love it. This is great. Thank you. Okay. Who's inspiring you these days? I just have a few more rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah. So inspiration for me is based on what chapter I'm writing in life. And, right now I'm definitely inspired by people at the top of CrossFit. So CrossFit Games athletes. And I'm fortunate that I get to train with a lot of those people. So they inspire me, just their ability to do so many things at a very, very high level. Creators, I really like. I just partnered with these two young guys, actually 3 young guys who are helping me with short form and long form content. My buddy Bobby, who's here in Colorado, and my friends Jamie and Jace, who are in Florida. They're helping me learn a lot of the kind of science behind creating really good video and a good hook and something that is super engaging for an audience to watch. I listened to Andrew Huberman. I really liked his podcast he just did with Tim Ferriss. I listened to that on the plane back from Nashville 2 days ago. So I'll tune in to him on a regular basis. Sahil Bloom, I really like. He was recently at an HPLT, high performance lifestyle training event that I went to that Brian Mazza runs. And Sahil spoke. He's someone who was in the private equity world, got out of it because he wanted to be able to spend more time with his family, but kind of had the golden handcuff, was making a ton of money, but recognized an opportunity with Twitter and newsletters and has since amassed a massive following and audience, and now makes more money, working way less than he was with his private equity job where he was just grinding day in and day out. So I love reading his newsletter. It's just really good lifestyle design tips, and just like ways to live a really fruitful, opportunistic life. So I've been consuming his content a lot.
I'm signing up right now. You've influenced me. You're good at your job.
Thank you. He's great. You'll really enjoy his newsletter. It's like a 5-minute read twice a week, and I've been loving reading it. I mean, my peers like Brian Mazza, big fan of what Brian's built, with his HPLT lifestyle retreats, and how he does a lot of the same things I do, where he comes into every single relationship with how can I add value? How can I make sure that everyone is winning? How can I make sure the sum is greater than the parts? So I like surrounding myself with people like that.
I love it. It's great. Okay. What is the worst thing you've ever done for your health?
Oh man. Getting blackout drunk in my late teens and early 20s. I mean, just looking back on that chapter of my life, certainly had some very fun nights, but Jesus, like how shitty I felt the next day. I can't believe I did that to myself. Just knowing how good I feel now and how vulnerable and how authentic I can be just like through wellness protocols, as opposed to having to abuse alcohol to get to that place.
I'm with you. I pretty much stopped drinking. I mean, I started drinking early like you. I think I had I was a binge drinking normal, CU grad. Yeah. I don't know, but we were binge drinking in the Midwest in high school. But I then stopped, pretty much stopped drinking at, 24 or something. And I think I don't know. I feel like that's served me well to stop, to get past that and then be I don't even I hardly drink ever. And you just feel so much better. It's true.
Same.
Do you drink at all or not really?
My rule of thumb is unless it's going to greatly enhance the experience, it's a no for me. So if I'm in Napa Valley at a high-end winery, I'll have a glass of their wine. If I'm at a wedding and everyone's doing a champagne toast, I'll do a champagne toast. But, I might end up having 2 glasses of wine and 1 champagne toast a year. It's very, very rare.
Yeah, I feel you. I like that. Okay, my last question for you. I ask everyone this, but what's something most people don't know about you?
I mean, a lot of people don't know the business background. So, on social media, it's really been 2015 on where I'm perceived as, just an athlete that has an interesting life of exercising and sitting in saunas and being in, ice baths all the time. But, business is still a huge component of my life, and I love building businesses and building brands. And I built all, the insurance business, the software business, restaurants and gyms before I ever had any kind of following on social media. So, I wear that hat on a very regular basis, in addition to what everyone sees on social media, which is generally me exercising with my shirt off all the time.
I love it. You're like a closet CEO.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Well, thanks. This was so great to chat with you. Real quick, though, what companies are you invested in? I know I said this is my last question. I have one more, but what are some of the companies you're invested in that you're the most excited about? I just want to give a little plug.
Yeah. I'm invested in Ice Barrel. I'm stoked for them. Invested in Masa Chips, which is a 3-ingredient chip. Slate Milk, which is lactose-free milk. They just partnered with the UFC, which is a massive for them. Partnered in Beam, which is that Beam Dream sleep supplement I take. They have other products that are wellness products. Kane Footwear, recovery shoes, 10,000. I was a very early investor in them. Men's apparel brand. They'll be coming out with women's apparel here really soon. The Real Cereal, which they're about to make a big splash. Just all natural cereal products. I invest in a lot of the brands I end up working with. I would say half of the brands I work with, I don't just get equity in exchange for services. Like I invest money in them. HVMN, super excited about everything they're doing. Just, invested in them. HVMN is, it's like endurance for your mind. It's ketones. So it's ketones in a liquid form, and it's just like brain fuel. It's similar feeling to a nootropic, where you just have this calm energy and a very narrow aperture.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Instagram is the best place. My name, Eric Hinman, erichinman.com. But I love interacting with people around wellness topics on Instagram. So any questions you have, any opportunities you want to present to me, just DM me on Instagram.
Very cool. Thanks so much, Eric. It was great having you today.
Thanks, Morgan.